Welcome to another episode of Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinitwe. Once again, we are here to give the young people a platform to be able to express their thoughts, their views in regards to the fight against corruption. Now, with me in studio today, I do have quite a diverse panel, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, and then we shall dive just straight into today's topic. Hello to the lady at the extreme end. Thank you so much for joining us on Your Space. How has your week been?
Hello, Hannah. Thank you so much. Good evening, viewers. My name is Monica Achario. I'm very glad to be here today, be part of the conversation. My week has been good.
We've quite missed you here on Your Space, Monica.
I've been here.
Hello, welcome to Your Space.
Hello, my name is Abaho Arthur, and thank you very much, Hannah, for having me, and I'm so glad to be part of this panel.
Yes. Welcome, Doctor, to the panel.
Good evening, viewers. I'm very happy to be part of this conversation today. I'm Patricia Achano Kiria, and thank you very much, Hannah, for hosting us.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Today's conversation is one that has been itching me, and I'm quite excited that we are having it. We're looking at breaking the silence, and I think having this conversation within this month is quite important because we've been breaking the silence on so many things like gender-based violence and now corruption. We're going to be addressing youth apathy towards corruption, and I'll start with Monica. Monica, how do you think young people look at or address corruption?
Look
from your experience. Okay. How do they look at corruption? How do they address corruption?
All right. As we all know, it's really a division of two sides. There are those who refer to corruption as an evil, which truly is an evil, and then there is the privileged side, which calls corruption connections, which is also another version. So how do the youth look at it? I think it depends on the angle from which it's coming, really. But the bigger angle, or I would say the bigger percentage of the youth look at corruption as something that is bad, something that is evil. It is painful. Evidence of that, of course, was the march we had. Was it early August? Around there, that strike that we were having was all, it was an implication of what the youth believes or sees corruption to be, and their general feeling about it, really.
Yes. Arthur, do you agree that that's how majority of the young people look at or address corruption?
Yeah, I think just to add on what Monica had said, it is coming from a point of diverse opinions on how the youth have perspective on corruption. Well, it's not necessarily fear of speaking against corruption, but where you're coming from. So the privileged will not talk about corruption because they're benefiting from it, and the underprivileged will not talk about corruption because of the implications it may have. So it is not largely a question of whether you fear talking about corruption or not, but the position at which you stand in regards to the fight.
Like even as young people, that matters?
It does.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like coming in from a form of viewing corruption as a survival mechanism, some people look at it as a way of going through the day. You've grown up seeing your parents paying these small bribes to doctors to get a hospital bed. So as the youth, you feel like you cannot fight the system that you've seen growing up. So you would also ideally want to pay these small bribes to get the hospital bed, because if you do not pay these small bribes, there is no way you're going to get the hospital bed. That is coming from the point of underprivilege. From the point of more privilege is people accessing offices, people accessing positions because they have capacity of bribing their way in. So they will also ideally think, my parent will put in the word for me, my parent will pay the money for me, and I will sort of get this position. So it's basically largely a position of where you stand as the youth that sort of creates the fear for you to talk against corruption, or for you to address corruption in whatever mechanism, whatever angle you come from.
One of the questions that I think has been going around social media that I have to ask is somebody asking about whether a certain situation is corruption or not. For example, let's say a government office is looking for a new employee, right? And this person, and one of the privileged young people, has a connection to an interview for that position. They are qualified, right? But they're going to get help from maybe a family member to reach that stage. Is that considered as corruption?
Yes.
It is considered corruption?
I think
you
so.
Think?
It should
I mean,
be.
the person is qualified.
You are qualified.
I think that is corruption because in all with all intents and purposes, that position is supposed to be competitive.
Yes.
So if another person is having unfair advantage over the other, then that is automatically corruption. It's better everybody competes and we get the best of the best, yes, for fairness.
Okay.
Yes.
So Dr. Patricia, your office handles a large number of complaints, accountability, petitions, and all that stuff. Do you, what do you think, based off your experience, how do you think young people address corruption?
Well, with the experience I've had now, not a very, very long experience, though, working with young people, I see the young people are first of all full of energy, and they're dynamic. And they speak out their minds. They speak nothing but the truth of what they're experiencing and what is happening out there. Most of the cases we have received in the Inspectorate of Government are brought by young people.
Really?
Majority of the population we have in the country today are nothing but young people. And that is why many times I've said they're the heartbeat of this nation, because they're actually the ones reporting the cases, they're giving us leads. So young people can participate in the war against corruption, and they look at corruption and they can distinguish between right and wrong. They know what corruption is, and that is why recently you heard us talking about how the war against corruption is a people's war, and the involvement of the young people in the war against corruption. And our theme for this year's International Anti-Corruption Day was the role of the youth in the war against corruption. So I believe that young people out there already know what corruption is through our vast awareness programs we have had with the engagements with the young people. But I believe they can take it a step further, except there are those categories who are a bit hesitant to come out to name and shame because of certain circumstances. And you know, this is an issue that basically touches this country in different ways if you look at the impact of corruption. So by involving young people, it would be a very good strategy to deal with the situation. But you find that some people are out there and they fear retaliation. They think that, well, if we take this matter to the IG, I've just gotten my job because I've reported that, I may be victimized, I may be fired, I may be put on Katebe, which is really a big problem. But my message out to the young people is to encourage them to come out openly, to report these cases. We have got the Whistleblower Protection Act, which basically protects that whistleblower who brings this case. And basically, if you're patriotic and you have a heart for your country, you would want to come out and name and shame. But this fear of retaliation is something we need to really deal with, because many have witnessed the negative vibes or stories that come out on how people have reported and they have lost their employment, they've been harassed, they've been threatened. So, but we would like to encourage young people that we need to work together to deal with this problem. The law protects the whistleblower, whoever brings a case, and that same law rewards the whistleblower. If we investigate that case and recover that amount of money, then whoever has reported as a whistleblower is entitled to 5% of what we have recovered. I like how you alluded to vibes. I think you've been around young people for too long, Dr. Patricia. And I've become young. And you've become younger. I mean, you're not talking about bad vibes, right? I just really want to understand from a young person's point of view. Monica, why do you think so many young people hesitate to speak about corruption from your experience?
Thank you. I'll build on from what Dr. Patricia has said.
The bad vibes?
Negative vibes. Fear of killing steeds. Okay, so in general, there is the fear of retaliation. It could be in workspace, it could be wherever it is really, but it is the fear of being victimized and talked for. For instance, if you go to the hospital and you recognize or witness a certain kind of corruption taking place, you speak about it, the next time you go to such a place, it could be two-way. You would be the one now that's saying, oh yeah, she's actually a good person, let's help her out. Well, the whole point is the whole thing is when you are whistleblowing, we are not looking at only the IGG's office. Sometimes whistleblowing is you telling the boss that guy is doing something that he shouldn't be doing. And what if the boss doesn't have the is it emotional intelligence? Is that thing or social, you know, of knowing that if Monica has said this about Hannah,
shouldn't be sharing it with
exactly, like, why is Arthur knowing about it? Best I can do is bring Monica and Hannah in the same room and let's have the conversation. But now if your boss is not that kind of person, goes around telling people about it, at lunch people are now not wanting to sit with you because you are a snitch or something like that. So at the end of the day, you don't like going to work anymore. That is if you kept your job. In other spaces, so generally what I can say in conclusion what I can say is the fear that comes with it, and maybe we have seen, personally I think I have seen quite a number of negative impacts.
Really?
Yes, like
you've experienced that,
not firsthand though, but I've seen it, and it never ends well for the one who snitches. Especially in workspaces, you're going to either be forced to quit. They may not fire you, but the environment will be so hostile that you yourself will be like, man, guys, I can't, and you'll end up finding new places.
Arthur, do you have an experience that you would like to share? Why you think maybe so many young people fear to speak up about corruption? Do you fear, first of all, to speak up about corruption in your spaces?
Well, I do not fear to speak about corruption in my spaces, and I'm sort of privileged not to be in spaces that have sort of experienced large nuances of corruption. Because one thing about the private sector is they focus more on
merit.
Maximizing profit and merit, and so they sort of want to maintain the sort of capital and liquidity within the business.
So government institutions, however,
that's another that's a discussion. So private institutions are looking for keeping the money within, so they cannot allow you to be corrupt. That is taking money out of the institution, out of the business, so it becomes very hard. So I've not been in situations where corruption is pronounced in my space. But to build on what Dr. Patricia was saying, I feel like social media creates like some sort of illusion of voice, but then later also perpetuates the same person as the victim. So I'll come on social media, point out the corrupt, call out the corrupt. Then tomorrow, if I apply for a job, if we have corruption tendencies going on in the job I'm applying for, guys will be like, okay, we know this face. Yes, we know what you do. We know you're the whistleblower. So I feel like, so I feel like that also sort of restricts the youth from coming out and speaking as they should, because they know opportunities in that sense, in that regard, now become limited. But then also what I think goes around mostly is what they term as the narrative fatigue. Like this is where this occurs when a message is very important, a message is very valid, but you feel so detached from it because it has been going around so much. Let's fight corruption, let's fight corruption, let's fight corruption. So you feel
it becomes like a normal thing.
Yes, it becomes like a normal thing, and there's some sort of
in a different language or like different words. Would that help?
No. So I feel like what would help is sort of bringing the message directly to the people so that it does not feel detached, because when they say fight corruption, you only look at it at the top level. You only feel like it's not my responsibility to fight corruption. So it seems as something that is so far-fetched from you, and then you feel like it's not your responsibility to fight corruption. So I feel like unless you can now tell how it is a personal loss to you and bring it down to a person and the youth, we feel like there we can start addressing the fight of corruption in that regard. But provided it is still detached and it still looks far, we are going to have the same thing that has been going on and on and on.
All right, let's go in for a brief break. When we get back, we'll be looking at how to fight such mentalities today. Welcome back from that short break. You are still on Your Space with your host, Hannah Arinitwe, and we are still looking at breaking those barriers. Now, we've listened to all the reasons as to why so many of us young people sometimes fear to step out and speak about what's not right. But would want to now look at how do we solve such mentality or such problems. Dr. Patricia, just like Arthur has shared, there is a bit of fatigue, narrative fatigue, when it comes to the statement of, oh, let's fight corruption. How can we be able to lessen that fatigue?
Thank you very much, Hannah. I think it's important for us to equip the young people, first of all, with the information they need to be able to demand for accountability. Because you cannot go to war without knowing the enemy very well.
True.
So we need to create more awareness so that young people know what corruption is, know about the impact or the effects of corruption, so that they can willingly come in and join the war against corruption. We talked about fear of retaliation, but when these people are equipped, empowered with the information, then they are strong enough to confront the problem. There is the issue of lack of empowerment. Young people lack the necessary platforms and support to come out to contribute to the war against corruption, to come out and voice their concerns or even report cases. So if we can give them that support, I believe we can have a country where the young people hate and shun corruption, and they demonstrate that hate by reporting more and more cases of corruption. Then there is a limited awareness and education. This I already talked about. We need to equip them with knowledge, we need to train them, we need to skill them, because corruption in certain societies today have been normalized, where unethical practices are seen as the status quo. But young people, when they grow up in environments where corruption is being practiced, they also get to adopt and become part of it. So we need to see how to make a difference. And this is about the mindset change, which we have talked about again and again in this program.
Dr. Patricia, I want you to look straight in the camera and please request our viewers to take it as a very serious personal decision to change the way they live their lives.
Oh, wow.
If we can even zoom in closer,
Yes,
so that we can get the actual, I don't know how to explain it.
I think it's important for young people out there to be purposeful and intentional about this mindset change. Because when we have this mindset change, then we are going to be different. We are going to view things differently. We are going to be more patriotic and mindful about our country and what is good for the nation, not what is good for the individual. So that we move away from that attitude of myself, me, myself, and I. So we'll be thinking about what is nationalistic, what is there for the common good. And when we take those positions, then we know that when we see corruption happening in the neighborhood, we can boldly come out and report the case for action. So we need to appreciate some of those aspects of corruption. The reluctance of young people to speak up against corruption basically undermines the collective fight against the corruption as a vice. And when the voices of the youth are muted, then we lose our fresh perspectives we are talking about. We lose out on the solutions. So we need that vibrance, that energy from the young people, and that is why the theme for this year's International Anti-Corruption Day is the role of the youth in the fight against corruption.
Dr. Patricia?
It's on the 9th December, but we had it celebrated on the 10th December. Yes.
Okay. Are we invited? How can we be able to attend?
Yes, everybody.
Is there like an online?
Everybody will be invited to attend, and we are having lots of radio programs, talk shows, and conversations on X, basically involving everybody, so that we get to know how we can come in to be involved and contribute to the national development. Yes.
If this was not a very serious young person conversation, I'd have asked the DJ to play a song called Me, Myself, and I.
Yes, please.
But Arthur, I will come to you. If we as young people continuously call ourselves freedom fighters and corruption fighters, and why are we even scared for things like retaliation? Why are we even bothered, you know, with all these so-called side effects that come along with the fight?
Okay, that is...
Should we be? Should we even be?
I think we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't be, but that it goes back to reality. How does you coming up to speak against corruption now affect you as a person? What's the kind of backlash you are going to receive? Because ideally, you shouldn't be afraid to like come out and speak. And
you shouldn't.
Yeah, you shouldn't. But like we said again and again and again, and like Dr. Patricia has emphasized, it's a whole mindset thing. It's a whole mindset shift we need to have. We need to sort of change how we look at this as youth. Then we can start addressing it in the proper mechanism. How
can we build that confidence, Monica? Because I've known you personally, and I know you're a very bold young lady that is currently at the Law Development Center, right?
Done.
You're done now. Like, this is something you do on a daily. You're very bold. How have you been able to build that confidence among yourself when it comes to standing for what's right?
Thank you, Hannah. Yes, I've been in those spaces where you have to choose between saying it as it is, with respect, of course, or keeping quiet and then living with the guilt of I could have said something and I didn't.
They call
and
it
now,
on your neck.
yes, and now someone else is suffering out of the consequences of something you would have fixed by saying something.
Yeah.
So there is this mentality I have. Generally, it helps me move. There are like 8 billion people in the world,
8
right?
billion.
Out, and my personal, I would say, thing I move with is that out of 8 billion people, God cannot put me in a position where it was the person that has a challenge with me that must help me or bail me out. So that means if I've done something wrong, don't be afraid to call me out thinking, oh my God, you may need me later. Should I need you later, God will work it out and you will work for me. But if you don't want to work for me, 8 billion people, he will not fail
To find
someone
else.
to sort you out. So with that mentality, you will be able to speak a little more boldly, knowing that your source is God. He uses men to bless you the way he should, right? So that kind of also lets the fear go away a bit. But I walk into this office, it's this person I was talking so much about, and it's that signature that I need. Life is not a Nigerian movie. It doesn't always have to play out that way.
Life is reality.
Thank you very much. So with that mentality, you will speak more,
I
because
love
in
that.
the end,
I love
someone
that.
may suffer because you didn't say something
Yes.
when you had to.
Dr. Patricia, how have you been able to build confidence within yourself, especially in your position? How have you been able to build that confidence to stand for what is right in such a corrupt world?
Well, when you stand for certain principles and values, you do not compromise those principles and values. And I would like to encourage young people out there to stand for those values. We have the national values, the 10 of them, for truthfulness, for honesty, for integrity, for patriotism, for social responsibility, and others. Our institution, the Inspectorate of Government, has created safe reporting mechanisms where we encourage people to report either through anonymous reporting channels. Then we encourage the young people to engage with trusted institutions which have set platforms specifically to encourage individuals to report misconduct without fear of the retaliation we talked about or harassment. So they are free to come in to report. Their mobile apps. We have got hotlines, we have got a toll center, and then we encourage people to come and engage with trusted agencies. So, and then we are also implementing awareness campaigns.
Yes.
Like you have had our radio talk shows, TV talk shows and programs, which are basically encouraging young people to come out, to empower the youth to understand what their role is in the war against corruption, which is very, very important. So for me, I think as an individual, first of all, we build trust. We build trust in ourselves through transparency, through walking the talk, so that when I speak about integrity, people see me walking exactly that. So I encourage young people to be exemplary, to be distinctive in whatever it is they are doing, and also publicly sharing their experiences and outcomes. It is very, very important. If we regularly encourage or inform the community of what we are doing, then the community will build that trust and confidence in us. Talking about the outcomes of the cases, you've seen sometimes us publishing the cases we have prosecuted, the conviction rates, and the people we have arrested and taken to court. This demonstrates that reports lead to real change and encourage even others to come out and report. Then we engage with young people in decision making, involving young people in discussions, in conversations such
Like
as
your
this,
space.
like your space. It is really a platform where young people can air out their views. Who would know that I would be humbled to be seated near my son Arthur this evening discussing these issues? It is very, very important.
And allow me to thank you as well, Dr. Patricia, for giving us a platform to be heard.
Sure.
Yes, because we've had so many conversations on this platform, and we've seen you go back and make a difference.
True.
Heavy on the aspect of feedback. I remember when we had that, I think around like 2 episodes about feedback, and you actually went back and shared this, and now we actively see updates,
Feedback and
feedback.
Yes,
and
please.
personally, I'm very happy.
Thank you very much, Hannah.
So as we come to the end of the conversation, Monica, what final words would you share with the young person watching right now?
The country you want to see in your mind, you can build it. The corruption-free environment, you can build it. But it has to start with you and your friends. Don't keep quiet. Don't be afraid. God has got you. So speak your truth and speak it loudly, speak it boldly. Besides, IGG protects you.
All right. Should I call you Pastor Monica at this point? Arthur, please do. We have a couple of minutes left.
All right.
Just give your final response.
I'll sort of diverge from the biblical approach and godly approach that Monica is bringing into this discussion, though I agree with it as well.
Yes.
I feel like as youth, we need to first of all take away the whole discernment of the detachment we have that the fight of corruption is only at the top and it's only leaders and people in government positions responsible for fighting corruption, but then take it upon ourselves and then also equip ourselves with the legal knowledge, with the legal literacy, know what works and know what does not work, know when to say what. So because like Doctor has said, we have the Whistleblowers Act, but most of the young people outside there do not know about it. So they will fear to speak because they do not know that we actually have provisions that protect them. So equipping ourselves with all this material, equipping ourselves with all this knowledge would ideally go far in helping us in the fight against corruption. So educate yourself and then do not look at the detachment. It's
my few experiences with having lawyers on this panel has taught me quite a number of things in regards to the law. Dr. Patricia, as we conclude, what final words do you have to say to the young person watching?
To the young persons watching us this evening, be the change that you want to see out there. Accountability begins with me, accountability begins with you. So if you can demonstrate that in the different spaces you find yourself in, you will have contributed something to the war against corruption because you are becoming exemplary and everybody will be watching you and admiring you. May God bless you. Thank you for listening.
It's been a lovely episode. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place, right here on Your Space. Bye-bye.